It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started.
All right, let's face it. Scrum has become pretty popular. In fact, in the world of Agile implementations, Scrum is the runaway winner for most implementations because it's so iterative and collaborative, and it helps you to do many great things. For example, uh, it has a ton of benefits when it comes to collaboration, coordination, short cycles, quick feedback loop, faster time to market, lower costs. I mean, there's just tons of benefits. However, Scrum teams often face challenges as well. Some challenges happen during a sprint, and those are usually the ones that greatly affect productivity and hinder successful project delivery. So, the question that was asked to me was, what are some challenges that Scrum teams face during sprints, in sprint challenges, and how do you overcome them? So I thought this is going to be mighty hard to fit in a short podcast episode, but I'm going to do the best I can to cover a few at a high level. So let's start with the most common. The most common one's scope creep. This is where you already have work that you've committed to. Everything's locked in for the sprint, go team. And someone comes in and says, yeah, and we have this one other thing, we need you to do, or there's this one extra thing that needs to be taken care of. And this just really kills the team's focus. It causes them to have to do a whole bunch of additional external communication. It stops them from working on the things that are most crucial. This is probably one of the biggest detriments. So, how do you address scope creep? You make sure that scope creep gets addressed either by the product owner or the scrum master. If you have Team John implemented, great, you could do that as well. But the point I'm trying to make here is just you don't want to disrupt the natural flow of the team with an unnatural flow of work. So if you find that you're getting interruptions, you want to make sure that you solve those interruptions by, taking care of the interruption before it ever hits the team. Once the team is interrupted, it's hard to recover and get that time back. So scope creep is the number one challenge that I see, and it definitely happens throughout the sprint, as well as in between sprints. Okay, how about this one? Lack of clarity in how estimation and forecasting will be performed. Ouch. Okay, so when I talk about lack of clarity in forecasting, this basically means that teams and organizations either don't know how to do story points, they're unclear on how to do story points, or they're still using some type of time based estimation. And this creates confusion. It creates a system where leadership tries to compare one team to another. It creates systems of difference where people are being judged or rated, or people are being scored based on their performance using story points. And what I can tell you is that if you're using story points for these things, you're going to have a nightmare. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that if you're still using time for estimation, you're in trouble. But how is this something that interrupts you during a sprint? Well, when people start to compare one thing to the other, it makes it kind of challenging. So I think the key to solving this is to make your stories clear, concise, well-defined, properly elaborated, and all the good pieces so that you can make sure you have clarity in forecasting, clarity in what's going on, so that the team's not interrupted for additional forecast or additional information and that type of thing. You want to avoid ambiguity when you can. Okay, how about the next one? Unrealistic timeframes. How many times do we go to a team and say, yeah, I need that, and if there's any way you can get it to me by Wednesday, that would be great. And we're like, well, today's Tuesday. Do you mean next Wednesday? Yep, next Wednesday, tomorrow. No, right? When you set unrealistic timeframes for backlog items or put undue pressure on a team to get things done, it's just going to cause stress. And if you're able to establish realistic expectations and make sure the team understands that collaboratively they can work together and deliver something of value, it makes it a lot easier, and it's less of an interruption on a team. Of course, there's dependencies and bottlenecks. This is when something that we discover, we've been given work to do, and we discover that there's a dependency that's either on an outside force that we have no control over, or a dependency that we didn't know existed, but it's something that we have to take care of before we take care of the current item. Either way, this is bad news. Either way, it alters the workflow. And if we're altering the workflow, that means that we're altering a commitment. So once again, you need to be super mindful if you have any dependencies or bottlenecks, because that'll definitely stifle progress. All right, how about technical debt? I know I talk about this one quite a bit, But avoiding technical debt is something huge, right? We want to stop acquiring new technical debt, stop accruing technical debt, and start figuring out ways to address the debt we have. Now, debt doesn't just mean defects and backlog items. Debt can mean a whole slurry of things. So you want to make sure, if you haven't already, go listen to our episode on technical debt, or go watch our video on technical debt, or even go download the document, 7 Deadly Sins of Technical Debt. There's lots of stuff out there to help you address and understand debt. But debt can be anything from a poorly defined backlog to a non-conforming architecture or infrastructure, to not having two sets of eyes look at things before they go out of the door. There's just lots and lots of definitions of debt that would interrupt or interfere with the team being able to do their work. Okay, how about task allocation? Sometimes when we talk about task allocation or task breakdown, this is where we want to make sure we have things broken down at the right level, but we don't want people to get lost in analysis paralysis. And I think that sometimes teams and organizations get stuck in this analysis paralysis, hey, what should I do next kind of thing. And it really does cause some confusion. It causes teams to not know what to do next, or even if they do know what to do next, they don't necessarily know why. And when they start getting into the devil in the details, and it must have to be this way, what it does is it causes disruption, because the teams don't have the opportunity to ask the questions that they need to, and they're being asked to do work that they haven't properly prepared. So a little bit of upfront preparation is definitely important. Okay. So what about some of those testing tasks? Like, do we have properly defined test cases, or is test execution and defect management something that we're taking care of? Do we have test automation at the regression test level? Are we automating some of our unit tests? What are we doing to help optimize testing practices? All of those things can disrupt flow and disrupt service and cause teams to move at a slower pace as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, while Scrum provides a lot of value, there's also a lot of pitfalls you need to be careful of. So making certain that you're addressing challenges and using effective communication, team collaboration, commitment to continual improvement, finding ways to overcome just small obstacles, dependencies, and whatnot, but also finding ways to work together and be excellent at communicating, you're going to find that you can improve the way that you implement Agile within your organization, and that you can have just an overall better implementation of Agile. Okay, so that's going to do it. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, make sure you reach out to us, learn more at agiledad.com. We would love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.